Let's bring in James Morrow now, my Sky News colleague, also the opinions editor at the Daily Telegraph. James, first up, what do you make of this pick? Does it make sense for Joe Biden for the ticket?
Well, you got to remember, Kieran, that from the start, Joe Biden narrowed his field probably unnecessarily by committing to selecting a black woman. So he narrowed the field of people that he could have picked. Now, I would have loved it if he'd picked Tulsi Gabbard or somebody like that as a woman of color, but he didn't. He picked Kamala Harris. It makes sense on one level, but on a lot of levels, it doesn't make sense. Number one, the electoral maths don't make sense because she's from California. California is a state Joe Biden was almost certainly going to win, so she doesn't bring any further electoral votes to the table. Secondly, is that exchange from that debate, and by the way, aren't we all looking forward, Kieran, to a debate between Joe Biden and Donald Trump? That debate you featured between those two, that brought up a lot of problems that Kamala Harris has around basically being a cop and very pro-prosecutorial, very pro-law and order, which isn't really in keeping with the tenor of the Democratic Party right now, which is very much all about defund the police, Black Lives Matter, and all of these very anti-cop, anti-authority, anti-establishment sort of sentiments. So the best I can figure here is Biden, or Biden's handlers, probably more accurately, made this play because they were worried about losing the suburbs, where the suburbanites are terrified of seeing what is happening in their downtowns, which are being looted and burned down and occupied by various rioters and thugs from ANTIFA and BLM and all sorts of other groups like that.
Is it also, so you've got that law and order component that we heard in that grab as well that we played for our viewers before our discussion. Is it also in a way to get people out to vote? Because this is a woman of colour, I believe Indian heritage, also a black American woman as well. I mean, is this partly to motivate people to vote?
That's pretty tokenistic, though, and he already said that he was going to choose a woman of color. So in doing so, it could have been anybody that he picked. But he's opened up a lot of problems for himself here, Kieran, because Kamala Harris is very ambitious. Now, there's nothing wrong with ambition per se. However, she went so hard against Biden in the primaries. She said that she believed Tara Reade, the woman who accused Joe Biden of sexual assault. She said that Joe Biden was a racist for his position on busing. So it's going to be really interesting to see how these two can actually work together and the wedge that can be driven between these two when Harris was such a full-throated opponent of Joe Biden and everything he stood for just 1 year ago. What does that mean, that she doesn't think he's a racist or a sexual criminal anymore? Or has she decided there's new evidence on that? Or has she decided that she just sees this as a ticket to the White House?
And James, just finally, given all of that, where do you see the electoral map right now in terms of the likely result? I mean, it's crazy to try and predict it, but where are things at in your view right now?
Well, I think that we saw Biden peak a couple of weeks ago. We saw some really huge polls suggesting that Biden was 8, 10, 12 points ahead of Trump in a national vote. But then you start to drill down, and I'm seeing more and more polls that suggest that Trump is coming back. I was just seeing that North Carolina, he's now up 48, 46. This is the state he's going to have to win. But I think that this is a lot more in play than people think. I think that the riots and the civil unrest and the crime and the disorder have hurt Biden terribly. And I don't know how he gets really back a lot of communities that have decided that the Democrats have just abandoned them.
James Morrow, thanks so much. We'll talk to you soon.